What's up, guys? My name is Watcherooski, and welcome to the Watcherooski. Now, this is my very first episode, and on this episode, I'm going to be going through my recap and review of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure episodes 1 through 9, Phantom Blood. And I even took extensive notes. I'm going to be going through the notes as I watched the show. That way you guys have an understanding of what was going through my mind as I watched each episode. Then I'm going to give you a recap, and we are going to get started now. So episode 1 kicks off, and we have this wreck. We meet this guy named George Joestar, whose lifeless body at the time seems to be pillaged, or getting pillaged by this guy named Dario Brando, who is the father of Dio, the guy that Dio Brando, the guy that ends up being the antagonist for our series. We don't know that quite yet, but it's definitely spelled out for us. Now, as Dario is pillaging George's body, George wakes up only to find out that his wife died in the carriage wreck, and she died protecting her little baby JoJo. Now, flash forward a little while. Basically, Dario gets a promise by George because George thinks he helped him. Like, George thinks that the guy that was pillaging his body actually helped him become alive. So George has just this big heart and says, hey, whatever you need, I got you. Effectively, Dario gives, this note from George Joestar to his son as he's getting old and sick. Because it kind of flash forwards a little while there. And we end up meeting Dio. Now, Dio ends up coming in to live with the Joestars after his biological father, Dario, dies. Dario is clearly a bad person. He's clearly in a bad way, clearly an alcoholic. And we see Dio kind of being this genius, hardworking douchebag, playing chess in bars to make money to get his dad booze. That's as best as we can figure. Eventually, Dio dies and is left this note by George Joestar given to Dario, the father, and he's basically like, hey, go live with the Joestars when I die, and, they're going to take care of you. Go get your fortune, blase, blah. Dio seems to have significantly more, like evil conniving plans going on. Now, we get introduced to JoJo at this time, and JoJo ends up being kind of admittedly a little whiny douche off of first impression. He sees these girls teasing Irina, who is our damsel in distress. JoJo goes to, help out Irina and gets clobbered by these three other guys trying to help Irina, but eventually Irina leaves, or the people bullying Irina leaves, and Irina is there just trying to help the guy that helped her, who's on the floor getting beat up. JoJo then lashes out at Irina, and I didn't think that was very cool. Like, he goes, in gentleman fashion to, interrupt, and then ends up lashing out at the girl he was trying to save. Now, he did say being a gentleman doesn't matter if you think you're going to win or lose. You have to stand up with what you think is right. I can get behind that. Now, JoJo really does kind of seem heroic, even though he's a little bit whiny. And then we go to the scene where Dio moves in with the Joestar family. And almost immediately, we see Danny, the dog, take a big old punt from Dio. Like, Dio literally kicks the friggin' dog. Like, that's one of our second or third impressions of him. He's a dog kicker. I was not cool with that. I was looking over at Clark, and I'm like, sorry you had to see that, pal. He's sleeping right there. You can't see him. He's just off screen. Now, I feel like Dio was kind of like the overprotective backpack kid at one scene, because JoJo is they make up about the thing, and JoJo's like, you know what, maybe he was just afraid of the dog. Turns out what ends up happening is when JoJo kind of extends an olive branch, she's like, here, let me carry your stuff. Dio freaks out at him like the kid in school that was overprotective of his backpack. He's like, I'll have a servant do it. Do not touch my things. Mind-blowing. But basically, JoJo is definitely a kid whose dad is sort of blindly tough on him. George Joestar in this case, is incredibly hard on JoJo, telling him use your manners. You got to be good, do the right thing, blah, blah, blah. But he's like super yelly. He's super overprotective. Now, Dio is absolutely kind of playing into this and being the super douche. I took a note in here that the animation really, really, really stood out to me. And it was certainly unique. It's certainly its own style, especially by compared to any other anime that I've seen. It's got this interesting like mix of like looking like manga panels. It also had this like kind of cool thing where everybody gets these cool poses, and like it goes into negatives where you see faces like just in two different color pictures. I actually really, really, really appreciated that. Besides the animation, it definitely seemed like it kind of inspired like Tekken and Street Fighter, and I think I said that when I was watching the openings and endings in my reaction on my other channel. Now, Arena was super, super, super nice, coming back to JoJo later, whose friends have all pretty well left him. Dio's telling everybody that JoJo's like a tattletale and a snitch, and so like nobody wants to be JoJo's friend anymore, so the dude is completely isolated. And Arena was super nice, and even though I didn't necessarily feel like JoJo deserved it for how he snapped out at her, he came off as kind of a tool and yelled at her, but she saw that he was humiliated, and, she wanted to say thank you, and she brings him some grapes with a bloody handkerchief that had his name on it that she was returning to him. We all know that grapes are the food of love, and if somebody gives you grapes, that's basically, you're going to get married to them. Neither here nor there. We go from that scene to Arena kind of walking away, being excited that, and kind of loving that she just gave JoJo the grapes and the handkerchief. And Dio comes up and SAs her. Like, I almost said the thing. SA'd her. Like, in the middle of it, he just plants one on her, forces a kiss on her. She definitely didn't want to do that, and then he like throws her down to the ground. She then sees a puddle and starts washing her mouth out with mud because she's so offended that Dio literally, like, he gets so upset about that he like slaps her, like completely forehand slaps her. Like, so not only does he SA her, but he totally assaulted her, and it's like he's obviously trying so hard to make JoJo feel so bad, but then Arena is kind of ashamed of everything that happened. And like, that was really frustrating. Not gonna lie, Dio in the first episode is an animal abuser, SA'er, and does a DV. He's literally AA, SA, and DV. Not cool. From there, we like see JoJo gets really upset, and there ends up becoming like a fight at the house. Now, earlier in the episode, you see JoJo and Dio get into a boxing match, like a school thing, and JoJo seems to be pretty good. Everybody's kind of touting on JoJo, but then what ends up happening is Dio comes in and is like, "Oh, I can fight," and literally just levels JoJo, punches him, like knocks him out, and even like pokes his eye, which is unbelievable. And so Dio just has it in his head that he's like definitely stronger than JoJo. They get into a fight at the Joestar residence in the basement, and we see this like the mask from the very beginning hanging on the wall. It seems to be kind of like referenced, like the animators definitely want you to know that the mask is on the wall. But basically, JoJo and Dio get into a fight, and it looks like JoJo's gonna lose, but then JoJo just leans back and headbutts Dio. And I've got to be honest, when I started to hear Dio cry, I literally wrote, "The instant karma moment was just amazing." I love that Dio is crying. They made it so tasty for that dude to just get the business from the top of JoJo's head. But as this is happening, the stone mask starts moving, falls off, grows like some crab claws, and starts walking forward. After the fight, we end up seeing something get stuck in the incinerator, like where they're burning the garbage. And I think you're kind of left to think that that Dio goes out of his way to kill the dog. And they leave it kind of, like a mystery to everybody, but JoJo knows, and I think all of us know, that he killed Danny. He literally burned the dog alive. I was not cool with that. I was really, really, really upset with that. I literally wrote, What the frig? I was not cool with it. And you know, as the episode ends, we get the quote, "In the blink of an eye, 7 years passed," and then the song "Roundabout" by Yes comes on, which, as far as endings go for anime, it was tremendous. I was absolutely super psyched. Now, getting into episode 2, we are now 7 years later, and apparently Jack the Ripper was definitely like doing his stuff at the time. Like, Jack the Ripper was ripping people. We're in 1888, just in case you were wondering. So 7 years later, at this point, I'm not quite sure what the mask is supposed to be, whether it's supposed to be good or bad, or what the significance of it is whatsoever, but they keep referencing it, right? Now, JoJo definitely in this episode evolves from the wimpy little skinny kid into, like, I wrote Swole Joe. Like, he becomes this huge dude. It seems like they're playing rugby. And it seems like in this episode, Dio and JoJo are buddies now. JoJo seemed really strong, and Dio seemed really fast and agile. Like, you get this really, really buff looking JoJo, and you get, like, in the rugby game, he's like dragging 4 people, and just as he's about to fall, he throws the ball to Dio, who scores. And they're both really complimentary of one another. JoJo seemed strong, Dio seemed fast. Now, JoJo is definitely grudge holding, but he seems to see through the act. Like, both JoJo and Dio are acting like friends, and it almost makes me feel like for the last 7 years, they've been acting this way, secretly hating one another. Because, you know, Dio is definitely like the crybaby who was ashamed of losing the fight to JoJo, and is like, I gotta control my anger. And it seems like in the beginning, you kind of think that they're buddies. Turns out, I don't think that this is the case. I don't think that they're buddies anymore, just all things considered. But you kind of get led into either of their mind that both of them still hates the other guy, and they're both kind of putting on an act. But it seems that the friendship is sort of an act of necessity. Now, the mask, we find out, belonged to JoJo's mother, and JoJo made it grow legs with his blood, like pokes his blood, and the mask kind of comes up and starts, like, getting into crab pose. Now, it seems like both guys are in college or university studying to be really big things. JoJo specifically is like, I'm going to go into archaeology. Now, Dio seems to be killing George at this point. Like, George is really sick, and Dio, like, we get it into our head that maybe Dio is the reason that George is really sick. He seems to, you know, have some pretty bad stuff happening to him, and they can't figure out what's going on. And Dio is continuously giving George his medicine every day. Now, it kind of comes to realize, like, maybe Dio killed his own father, and JoJo is 100% down to take a punch now. Like, when he gets punched by Dio, JoJo just kind of stands up and takes it. Now, Dio knows about the mask somehow, but he sees it as a like a medicine. Like, and he's planning to kill JoJo with the mask. Now, he's like, okay, I'm going to kill JoJo by getting this mask to go on his face. Now, we end up getting JoJo on this quest, more or less, to, like, figure out what's going on with George. And he's like, I'm going to go to London. And he's, like, basically testing the medicine that Dio has been giving him. He threatened Dio, like, I'm going to go figure out what it is. And Dio's like, oh, no, my scheme is going to get cut. I'll just make sure he dies. If he goes to London, there's no way he's gonna be okay. And it looks like JoJo is, in my opinion, getting a lot more likable in this episode, especially when he gets into the fight with the guys in the alley. JoJo completely beats them up, but he also takes pain in a way that you don't really realize. Like, somebody goes to stab him, and he grabs the blade by the knife, and the guy is like, hey, if I just move the knife, your fingers are gone. And he's like, I will kick you in the balls before you ever have a chance. And literally goes about just destroying and pummeling the guys in the alley. Well, the last guy has this really cool, like, bladed hat thing, and basically, like, boomerangs it over towards JoJo, and JoJo just catches it in the arm and is like, I'm fine, and gives the other guy the business. And the other guy, the guy that had the crazy hat, is like, no, guys, everybody stop. This guy is an actual gentleman. He could have killed me and the other guys. What do you need? They point him to an Asian apothecary that basically proves to JoJo, yeah, like, this is poison. And in the meantime, Dio, kind of complaining about what's going on, is like getting drunk in the city, just walking around with the mask. And I guess he decides to do a murder. And let's see, he's drinking Cronenberg scotch, which I kind of wondered if that was a shout out to the director Cronenberg. But it looks like Dio created some sort of vampire with the mask. Like, he decides he's going to do a murder. He shoves this mask onto somebody, covers it in blood. And lo and behold, we end up getting a vampire from the mask. Like, the mask is still on the ground, but the guy that had the mask put on him ends up just becoming a vampire. Or maybe a zombie. I don't know which. I think probably a vampire. But that vampire just gives Dio the business again, and we get to hear Dio cry again, and he's like kind of pouting that he's like, I can't believe I'm gonna die this way. I was supposed to inherit everything. I really friggin' hate Dio. They really, really, really set you up to like dislike this guy. But I literally wrote, seeing Dio get beaten up is the absolute best ever. Like, I loved the fact that we got to see that dude take a pummeling. Now, basically, right as he's about to get the business from the zombie, Dio ends up, watching the sunrise, and he's like, I can't believe this sunrise is the last thing I'm gonna see. And then the zombie turns to dust and melts away, and that's the only reason Dio gets saved. But it seems like something connects. Now, the interesting part of this one is that as the episode was ending, the music gets played through. Like, you see the acoustic part of Roundabout kind of playing in the last scene, and then it goes to the end scene, and you get the down. Really, really good stuff. And it seems like JoJo is on his way back. Now, episode 3, the JoJo is a gentleman theme certainly is like getting more and more present. I'm not going to lie. Even through his naivete in the first 2 episodes, it seems like he's kind of, his character arc is absolutely developing at this point. JoJo is a gentleman, and Dio is just a tasty, sniveling, beggy bum villain. And we end up getting introduced to Robert E.O. Speedwagon, which I got really excited because obviously that was a shout out to REO Speedwagon. Now, George telling off Dio what George in this episode basically tells off Dio and is like, I did everything for you. I was like kind, I was fatherly. I don't know why you're doing this. Dio kind of does his little sniving, like his little like, I'm sorry, I just mistreated all your love. I'm sorry. Ario is definitely an awesome guy to have around the house, and he apparently sees things now. Basically, Dio murdered George and puts the mask on himself. And basically, he throws a knife, intending for it to hit JoJo or George. I'm not quite sure. It seems like maybe it hits George and then JoJo catches him as he falls, or maybe George jumps in front of the knife to protect JoJo. I'm not quite sure which that moment was. Definitely let me know what your interpretation of it is. But we definitely get some more insight into Dario, Dio's father, and it basically shows the flashback that George knew that Dario was an evil person. He'd tried to sell the ring to a pawn shop to earn some money that he'd initially stolen off of George's, what he thought was a lifeless body. And, George goes to the prison and sets him free and basically gives him the ring that he knew was stolen from him. And he's like, get your family out of this, use this for the good of your family. So we know that George always knew, at that point at least, that Dario was a bad dude, which means he also knew that Dio came from a guy that wasn't raised by a good one. And effectively, George is like, no matter what, we need to be a gentleman to everybody. Doesn't matter. And I really, really, really liked the idea that George raised JoJo, and you kind of get a glimpse into this. George raised JoJo with the idea that it is better to be a good person for the sake of being a good person than just acting however which way we feel. Like, he is absolutely an altruist, and I really appreciated that. And you kind of realize the beginnings that JoJo comes from. And REO Speedwagon kind of has this moment where he's like, George is a real gentleman, and JoJo is a real gentleman. Now, Dio ends up putting on the mask and vampiring himself, but now we don't see the mask. We know the mask is outside, and he gets a bullet to the head. He's still walking. Dio is a different sort of vampire. He takes a whole bunch of different shots and is just unfazed. Some of the most expressive animations, I've got to say, when I watched this, the facial expressions on the characters absolutely 100% stand out. Like, you definitely feel their emotions, or the emotions that we are intended to feel if we put ourselves into their shoes. And I really like how just expressive this is. JoJo's bravery is 100% at this point. Dio is creating vampires, and the spear scene where JoJo gets like speared in the shoulder, and then he like is fighting with the spear in his shoulder, kind of jumping up. Fire catches to the house. And, we get into this crazy fight. JoJo is literally the biggest G, fighting with the spear in his arm. Now, fire seems to hurt Dio, or at least slows him down. I think that this is kind of foreshadowing, now that I've seen some more episodes. But using the mansion as a funeral pyre, basically, JoJo realizes his whole house is going to go up in flames, and he's like, okay, I'm going to use the mansion as a funeral pyre for not only my father, but for Dio, my adopted brother. And it does seem like JoJo kind of sees Dio as a brother. Like, it seems like there is a fondness towards Dio, even though Dio made his life crazy and terrible. Using the mansion as a funeral pyre, JoJo falls into the fire with the belt scene, like knife stabbing, Dio crying, which I loved. Dio pleaded and is impaled, which is amazing. Basically, they get into this fiery firefight, which is just them kind of like, punching each other. Dio's being all threatening, and he's like, hey, I'm going to get burned alive, and I'm still going to walk away from this, and you're going to die. This is all for nothing. And Dio basically spells out enough things to where by the time, we end up seeing him lose, it's so tasty. I don't know what it is, but they really set up instant karma in the first 3 episodes, where it's like you have the villain promising a whole bunch of bad things are going to happen, and then they don't happen. And I love seeing him just kind of whine about everything. Now, the statue of the Guardian Angel has a point on top of it. The Joestar residence has this statue in the house, and basically in the middle of the fight, JoJo and Dio are like, certainly killing one another, but it looks like JoJo's about to lose, falling into the flames. He takes a belt off, he catches Dio by the foot, pulls him down, and then, in the midst of like asking his, fallen father for strength, figures out a way to jump and maneuver and basically completely impales Dio's body into the burning house, and gets out. JoJo bested him, and he comes outside, and REO Speedwagon is there, and he's like, you've lost everything. You've lost your father. You've lost your house, but Dio is dead. You might have saved the world. And that's kind of where we're at. But the scene after the credits, Dio is still alive. So, getting into episode 4, okay? REO Speedwagon says, we defeated Dio. JoJo lost everything, father and home, so REO takes in JoJo. Now, I did have the question, how many episodes did you watch before you decided to skip the intro? Or are you always the person that watches the entirety of the intro? I think there's a lot of different people in anime that are like, I just want to get to the story, and other people are like, no, the intro's sequence is dope, and they watch every single one. This is about the point where I was like, I think I might skip the intros, but I could never skip the outros because, roundabout, or the endings, whatever you guys prefer. Also, I said, is Irina back, in all caps, because I kind of wasn't quite sure if we would get Irina back after that first episode. I didn't realize she was going to be recurring. I'd kind of forgotten about her until this point, but JoJo has found his love. I wrote Swolejo because, again, he's just way bigger than he was when Irina saw him. Swolejo still has the game, and he's definitely being a lot kinder. He's definitely got, like, much more of an adult handle on himself. And around this time in the episode, I find myself reflecting onto the first episode and thinking like how humiliating it might be if you got beat up in front of a girl you were protecting and then that girl is like acting all nice to you. You might be a little bit ashamed. And I kind of thought to myself, maybe the earlier episodes of JoJo acting with bad manners that way was just reflective of a kid being kind of embarrassed and humiliated. And maybe not that he was a whiny baby, but maybe he was just embarrassed. I mean, what guy wants to get beat up in front of his girl? You know what I mean? Or a girl he likes? Or what guy wants to get beat up in front of anybody, period? Or what guy wants to get beat up, period? So I did start finding myself having a little bit of a, maybe some empathy for what JoJo was going through. Now, JoJo's got like a shattered arm. He's completely beat up from the previous fight, but Irina is right there kind of like next to him as he's mending in health. And she faints and JoJo catches her with a broken arm. And we kind of get told in more specific words that JoJo just isn't feeling pain, which seems to be kind of a callback to the first episode in the fight with Dio. Like no matter how bad JoJo is hurting, he's just like, you know what? No. I've got to defend Irina's honor. I've got to defend my honor and, protect my family, people, myself. And so he just decides to turn the pain thing in his brain off, apparently. And it seems like each episode kind of goes further into that. We definitely get it revealed that Dio is 100% alive, and he basically turns Jack the Ripper into a zombie. Dio is definitely looking kind of yucky at this point, but does JoJo ever wear the mask, or is this something that the good guy holds to keep from evil? And that kind of made me think of like a Superman theme, right? Like Superman keeps a whole bunch of like evil technology in the Fortress of Solitude so people can't get to them. It kind of made me wonder, maybe like good people were holding the mask so that they couldn't get into the hands, it couldn't get into the hands of bad people. That was just my working theory. Because at this point, I still have no idea, like, if the mask is just a zombie thing or not. Now, JoJo got, like, pinkied by when I say pinky, I mean, like, he gets stabbed with the pinky by this guy that we are introduced to as Baron Zeppeli. Now, this was pretty exciting because I was pretty positive that this was a Led Zeppelin reference, but it gets JoJo, like, basically punched hard to the point that the wind gets knocked out of him to start breathing in this certain way, and JoJo gets healed. I literally wrote, JoJo got pinkied and then healed? And we meet Baron Zeppeli. Did he give JoJo strength through his pinky? And we find out that there is, like, a power-up scenario happening. Sendo, Ripple Energy, Hamon. Those are the words I wrote down. Now, Ripple Energy, I was kind of spoiled for me because people were like, hey, you like the Grateful Dead, and they named the power Ripple Energy after the song Ripple by the Grateful Dead. So admittedly, that one was kind of spoiled for me, but Hamon is a fun word, and we get to see a whole bunch of Hamon use in the future. But the power-up trope unlocked. It kind of made me think like a lot of anime. You see, the master come in and like make a dude aware of the powers he's had inside of himself the whole time. Dio still has the mask, but Baron wants to keep the mask, or at least get the mask away. Do I sense a training montage coming? I said right after that. Once we realize like Baron is like, I need to get this mask. Now Dio eyeballed the girl. Clearly his goal is to rule humanity. And when I said eyeballed the girl, I meant like he literally hit a girl and her eye fell out, which was absolutely bonkers. Some of the animations in the middle of fight scenes where you see like people's skin ripping and skin flaps just flying through the air and eyeballs falling out. It's kind of brutal in some parts, not gonna lie, but like tastefully brutal. If that makes any sense to you, tastefully brutal. Anyways, so the stone mask is finally opening up a bit. We find out that Baron found it initially in some Aztec ruins, and he watched his dad turn into a zombie, about to kill him, and then similar to what happened to Dio, his dad turns to dust, and that's where Baron discovered Hamon. Now, Hamon and the mask are two sides of the same coin, according to Baron, and basically the goal is to, like, I guess, teach JoJo how to channel and use his hamon to end up beating people. And we learn about the Zoom Punch, and maybe that's why JoJo never seemed to get hurt. Maybe he just has like this natural tendency to be able to use hamon, and he didn't even realize it, right? Hamon and Ripple Energy seems to kind of be like life energy, which, you know, super cool. Jack is the first real henchman of Dio's, zombies from vampires. I wrote that. So apparently whenever Dio like zombies somebody, they're kind of due to follow his will. Baron is drinking wine during fights, which just makes him super cool. The Hamon cutter and no spills. When we see the test that JoJo gets from Baron in the middle of this tunnel, basically Jack the Ripper attacks the group, REO Speedwagon, Baron, and JoJo, as they are going through this tunnel, and it's dark, so he's able to be in the tunnel in the dark, and effectively Baron starts fighting, holding this full glass of wine, doesn't spill a drop. And eventually, you know, Jack the Ripper kind of flees and goes to hide in the dark. And JoJo's like, what do we do? And Baron is like, if you don't beat this guy without spilling a glass of wine, I'm not going to train you. And so we kind of see JoJo is like, you know, oh man, what do I do? He's learned a few things from Baron at this point. It's clear he's got some kind of understanding of his own powers. His hamon, he seems to have maybe a natural ability to channel it, but he's now got to figure out how to beat Jack the Ripper, who is a zombie, without, you know, without spilling any of the wine. Now, what was really cool is I wrote this quote: "Courage is to look your fear in the eye and know that it has no dominion over you. Breathe, destroy the brain." So basically, we are told that breathing and calming oneself down is the best way to find your internal power. We're also told that to kill zombies, you gotta go for their brain. So Sendo Hamon Overdrive is what JoJo ends up using to defeat this guy, and he ends up basically punching his brain through a bunch of walls with just energy, and it's amazing. Boom, bingo, bango, we get the song Roundabout. And my last note on this one is Baron Zeppeli is awesome. I definitely really like that guy. Now, there is kind of a scenario here where I started noticing that for our heroes to do well, they need to breathe. They need to calm themselves. And I love the theme where this kind of bullied, angry kid gets taught pretty simple lessons in life, like breathe, you know, calm yourself, and you see what comes of those things. And I kind of feel like it was, you know, the artist's way of telling the viewer or the reader, if you're, you know, doing the manga, to breathe. And I really liked that. As a practitioner of stoicism, I really found, especially as I went through the show, that like stoic perspectives come up continually. Episode 5, we're walking through a town called Win Knight's Lot. Now, there's a whole bunch of prisoners in a castle. Approximately 500 people live here. And Zeppeli hits REO with the hamon. Honestly, I kind of think it's awesome that JoJo is traveling around with a character named after Led Zeppelin and a character named after REO Speedwagon, which admittedly is music I've not quite dug into. So if you have a favorite REO Speedwagon album, definitely put it in the comments. Now, this kid ends up stealing from them in like a really impressive way, like through this like acrobatics act, ends up stealing all of their money and just goes very far away, like into water, and swims to the other side. And you realize like, wow, that kid's got some acrobatic skills. And in my brain, I'm thinking, oh, did we just pick up a new character who's like really acrobatic? Now, once the kid steals from REO Speedwagon is like, oh, this is a big deal. Like, we can't do this. Like, we just lost everything. But then you have Zeppeli and JoJo. They're like, hey, I'll bet you that guy could help us out. And you kind of see the stoic approach. Like, again, in their mindset, they don't let themselves get overworked or upset. They're just like, hey, perfect, cool, I love it. Let's go. Let's make him our friend. And then we see like our boy Zeppeli, walk on water with his twinkle toes, like Fred Flintstone's about to bowl. And you kind of realize, like, wow, Hamon can do a lot of stuff. Like, he can walk on water, but he doesn't want to get wet. So he's like, Jojo, if you're going to use Hamon to walk on water, like, don't get your clothes wet. Which I kind of thought was funny, because you realize, like, he really is kind of like a dude that appreciates the finer things. Like, he's drinking wine while he's fighting. He doesn't want to get his clothes wet while he's walking on water. Hilarious stuff. So we ended up in a graveyard. It turns out Dio basically brainwashed this little boy to get them to do a whole bunch of stuff, and we end up in this graveyard. We realize that this whole thing is an illusion, and Dio is back in an impressive fashion. He's at the top of this, like, really comically large, like, stone thing, kind of like you might see in, like, a Dragon Ball Z episode, and he's just standing there against the moonlight. And yeah, we find out the boy's name is Poco. We also find out that JoJo seemingly has been practicing. I don't know how much time has passed between the last episode and this one, but it definitely seems like JoJo's learned new moves. He's learned the Zoom Punch. He can also walk on water. And everybody really powered up in this episode. Like, we're on episode 5, and when you're talking about in the beginning, we were just kids boxing in a schoolyard and, like, dealing with bullies, and now we've got, like, vampires and, like, brainwashing vampires and, like, zombies, and we're walking on water, and we're, like, dislocating our shoulders to throw long punches, like, and we're blowing up zombie brains through walls. Like, it's definitely escalated from the first one. So apparently Baron Zeppeli is like, no, I got this Dio guy. And he goes up to fight Dio, and we realize that Dio has the ability to freeze people's blood and, like, freeze their arms, and it basically stops the flow of Hamon to where it's, like, completely like, not usable whatsoever. Now, Dio compliments JoJo's block, because right as we think that Baron Zeppeli is about to get the business, JoJo goes in there, like, throws his hand in there, and he's like, no. And, yeah, blocks it. Dio is, like, pretty impressed, but you definitely get the sense that Dio has absolutely leveled up at this point. Like, the guy has been in hiding. He's like, figured some stuff out. And, like, he's definitely mastered his body, according to him. And then we get told, Bruford, rise. And I got super psyched, because I recognized that was also a shout out to another musician, Bill Bruford. These guys, Bill Bruford, I think they named him Bluford, but I think Bruford is what was intended. These guys, him and Tarukis, are knights from the 1500s. There was a really kind of cool backstory about how they were defending a queen, and, you know, the queen ends up, in a fight between England and Scotland. These guys were fighting for Scotland, and they end up getting duped, and they're like, you know what, we'll kill ourselves. We'll give ourselves over to you as long as you promise not to hurt the queen. And as they're about to get their heads chopped off, they see their beheaded queen, and then, like, I guess they definitely felt like they had something to fight for. Dio is basically, like, reanimated them to fight for him, and Ario is a healing G. There's a moment where we see, we've got Baron with his frozen arm, and Ario Speedwagon is like, I gotta figure this out. So he literally shows his glorious abs and takes the frozen arm and puts it on his frozen abs, and effectively warms up his arm, because, apparently Ario Speedwagon is super hot. And, definitely helped our guy Zeppeli out. Now, the scared, brave guy, I wrote in there, is he kind of like a Krillin comparison, like the scaredy cat who finds bravery in times of need, and, like, kind of makes it to where we have the ability to win. I could be wrong there at this point, but that's the feeling I got. Now, the Scarlet Overdrive attack is something that we see here in the fight between, I can't even talk, in the fight between JoJo and Bluford. Now, Bluford has some pretty crazy hair attacks. The posing definitely steps up a lot in this particular one, but you realize Bluford is this guy that holds a sword with his hair. He doesn't have to fight with his arms, and we get Scarlet Overdrive, and I wrote, when they calm and breathe, they get healed and powerful. I really liked that. It's literally in the face of danger, when, it looks like they're about to die, the the whole point is for them to just calm their minds and breathe. And then you find that they kind of find the solutions within themselves, or the bravery to confront whatever it is. And I just cannot get over how much I really like that. Like, because I think it's a worldwide, universally applicable lesson. Like, when you're dealing with stress or anxiety, calm yourself, breathe. It's going to be fine. So then George, I said, Troy giving it to him instead. Hang on. Try giving it to him instead. We get this flashback of George talking to JoJo about his enemy, and he's like, hey, if somebody takes something from you, just try giving it to them instead. Maybe you'll see that you don't have an adversary. And it's such a cool moment. Well, eventually we get into the water with Bluford and with JoJo. And when he has this revelation, he kind of realizes, like, hey, maybe instead of like trying to swim up and, you know, getting air now that I'm down in the water and, you know, dealing with sure death, maybe I'll swim down and try to find some air pockets, you know, below this mining, you know, where this mining shaft roof or ceiling should be. And he gets there, and then he's able to breathe and use his hormone again, and he throws this awesomely nice punch. And yeah, we get the turquoise blue overdrive. It's an awesome overdrive. It's an awesome punch. Happens in the water. We're really psyched. They don't hesitate to let evil win sometimes, which is a very balanced approach. That was my last note into Roundabout. This really amped up from the previous episodes. Those were my last notes there. Now, when I say they let evil win sometimes, like, I liked the fact that we saw Bluford and Tarukas watch their queen's heads get chopped off. You know, we saw evil actually won in that context, and it kind of gives you a kind of more of a balanced approach to the show. You know, like, while our hero is always ending up, you know, kind of winning, you see that in the past, evil has absolutely won and taken over, and it always seems like the evil has the upper hand, and I really liked that. Getting into episode 6. It kicks on in the fight with Bluford, and as JoJo is throwing the Sapphire Overdrive punch, we kind of start in from there. And I love that it feels like some of the scenes are from the manga panels. I wrote that again. It looks like they actually took certain pages from the book and just make them still images, and I really like that. Then we get the Overdrive Barrage, where JoJo is just going ham and punching hard, and the hair attacks prove why having a good hair day is so important. That was another note I wrote. The fight between JoJo and Bluford was just a ton of fun, and they leave you to think that Zeppeli and Ario got to deal with Tarukas, who literally snaps a guy in half, like, which was mind-blowing. Now, as it's looking like the fight between JoJo and Bluford is taking another turn, he gets this metal silver overdrive. JoJo thinks and learns on his feet, and I really, really, really like that. And we end up finally overcoming him with the sunlight yellow overdrive, pulsing with heat and light. And it's like the whole battle is kind of like you see hot versus cold, you see good versus evil, light versus dark. I mean, they have all of these contrasted themes of one versus the other, and they're all kind of equally necessary. You know what I mean? It feels like the colors of the overdrive reflect emotions or resolves or settings. I wrote that shortly after, because we get a whole bunch of different kind of colors and types of overdrives. JoJo is affected by empathy, and this gentleman idea is really inspiring. Seeing the best in people and finding it within himself. I really like that JoJo has the ability to have empathy even for the people that are, his enemies. Like, he considers what it is to be like them and almost has pity on the life that they've lived or that they act the way they do. When I say the gentleman theme, I really like that there is this idea of what does it mean to be a man? But then there is also, what is it to be a gentleman? How would a gentleman act? How would a person acting in accordance with what is right act? And you see JoJo throughout this, what's up? Thanks for the sub. You see JoJo throughout this really kind of addressing his own battle of principles, and like, his whole goal is to be a gentleman, to be a good person. And I really love that the kind of seemingly spoiled, whiny kid in the beginning ends up having this idea. Now, seeing the best in people and finding it within themselves. I love the character development from him being the whiny boy, and I'm still blown away at how much the powers have escalated. Because again, we were not too long ago in my brain, like just in a schoolyard boxing match. JoJo allowed Blueford to strike, and that scene was super cool. And you see that JoJo just decides, you know what, this guy's had a long life. I still think that there is good in him, and he allows Blueford to strike, which makes Blueford not hit him because he was like, wow, you were going to just let me take you down, which was such a good scene. And then you see that JoJo's hormone is like growing flowers and stuff around him. And I wrote, where was it? JoJo allowed Blueford to strike him, and his hormone brings life and flowers. JoJo redeemed Blueford by not defending himself. And it kind of, my note there, my takeaway, your faith in human goodness is rare, you know? And then I wrote, I cherish all that proves me human. That was one of Blueford's best quotes. Like, Blueford decides that there is good within him. He doesn't have to be under Dio's control. And, you know, he kind of sheds his dark appearance and you see this lighter one. And he kind of just goes off into what we imagine to be some sort of afterlife or something, or peaceful rest, whatever you want to see. But when he says, I cherish all that proves me human, that was another thing that kind of played on the balance of good and evil, like dark and light. He was like, I lived a hard past, and I think the good parts and the bad parts made me human, and I'm thankful for those things. Like, for the bad parts of my humanity and the good parts, all of the parts that like make me realize I am human and not a zombie. And I wrote, this is very stoic and awesome. I really, really, really liked the fact that they were grateful, like Blueford specifically was grateful for even the bad parts of his life. That was a really, really, really big deal to me. Your faith in human goodness is rare. And when I think about my own life, I would love that to be the case. I would rather err on the side of positivity. I would rather err on the side of kindness and doing the right thing for the sake of it being the right thing. Then we get the sword of luck given to us by Blueford to JoJo, and he writes a P on it to say pluck. Right? Like the sword of luck or pluck. I'm not sure what the name is now, but I love JoJo for caring about everybody, regardless of whether they were good or bad. Now, JoJo versus Tarukas ends up being a different story. Life Magnetism Overdrive, Leaf Hang Glider, and Poco saved. I write this because you kind of realize, like, you know, as we're getting chased by Tarukas, we've just defeated Blueford, sent him, you know, in redemption away. Tarukas is not about this at all. And basically, they, you know, Baron and JoJo, I guess, use their hormone and create a hang glider out of a whole bunch of leaves, and they kind of just like jump off a cliff with Poco and with Ario Speedwagon, and the four of them are getting away. And Tarukas just says, I don't care, I'm already dead, and jumps off and chases him and starts swinging this huge axe at him. And then we get a little bit, the training wasn't even seen, but they have certainly been working. Like the way that Zeppeli and JoJo work together definitely seems like there was a lot of off-screen work together to get to where they got. Now, it gets revealed to us that Baron learned hormone in India from a doctor and trained in Tibet with this little guy called Tom Petty. I got so excited about a Tom Petty reference. You have no idea. I about jumped out of my seat. I was genuinely so juiced. And we even saw, I felt like the jawline of Tom Petty, even though it had a beard, it looked like the real Tom Petty's jawline. And I was like, I wonder if any of the animation was kind of based off of his appearance as well. Now, there is this kind of revelation that Tom basically prophesied that Baron's, you know, Zeppeli's future was going to be like, he's going to die pursuing the training or doing this. If he continues on in this path, it's going to kill him. And we end up, you know, having Baron decide, you know what? No, I'm going to train with you. I'm going to do this. And we end up going back to JoJo against Tarukas. We chase him into this like dungeony thing. And there ends up being this like chained death match where both guys like, you know, get this collar put on them attached to a chain, And it's a really nice fight. JoJo ends up breaking his forearm, and Poco decides to get brave, maybe? He seems to have a similar background to JoJo, like the bullied kid, like that kind of doesn't really have that much, gets picked on a lot. His sister's there to step up for him. But it seems like Poco kind of decides it, like within himself, like, I gotta be brave. We get a quote later saying, "Pain is not the worst thing. It's growing up. It's growing up being too afraid to do anything." That was Poco's sister, and I really thought that that was such a good quote. Pain is not the worst thing. It's growing up being too afraid to do anything. Like the indifference of good men is the real evil, and I felt like that was kind of a way of saying it in a different way. I really liked the comment of like, "Hey, don't let your fear overcome you, and don't let pain make you afraid. Just do the right thing." And that was such a good one. And the roundabout closer on this particular episode had another acoustic guitar part entry, which was really nice. And I wrote at the very end of this, because you kind of see this reflection that Baron Zeppeli has as he's getting ready to intervene and save JoJo in this fight, because Poco decides to crawl through this window and open a lever that, or I guess pull a lever, push a lever, whatever it is, to free up JoJo, and open the door. Baron goes in there, and you kind of see in the flashback that, Tom Petty is like, "You're going to die doing this." And I wrote at the very end, is Zeppeli about to Ben Kenobi himself? I also wrote that self-efficacy, belief, and stoicism definitely play in on this episode. The ability to just feel good about yourself for doing the thing, even if it's hard, is self-efficacy. Belief in yourself, like, hey, calm down, breathe, understand that you've got it within you to do it. And then be stoic. Like, don't be fazed by big anxiety-inducing things. Like, just allow yourself to be. I loved that. So, from there, episode 7. Wow. I can't believe how far we're going through this already. We open in 1863 with some Tom Petty training. Now, I'm going to be honest, I get so juiced every time I see Tom Petty, because Tom Petty was like one of my earliest real musical loves. And they're doing this Celestial Gate training. And Tom basically says, hey, doing this training is going to be the eventual death of you to Baron Zeppeli. I believe there is a purpose to my life. And that seems to foretell about the current fight we're in. And I said, is he really going to die this early? I really, really, really liked that Baron was like, hey, even if you tell me when I'm going to die, I'm going to see my life has a purpose, and I'm going to live that to its entirety. I'm going to see that purpose through. And he did say, Tom Petty said, he would die unlocking somebody else's destiny. And I'm guessing that we're intended to believe JoJo here. I think Zeppeli is going to Kenobi himself. I literally wrote that, and unchain a young lion and release him into his destiny. This one really got me when I realized, like, oh my gosh, I think that they're actually probably going to kill Baron Zeppeli, and we've only just met him. Like, we didn't even get to see a whole training arc. That really kind of bummed me out. We get a tornado overdrive, which was really exciting. And I really love that the score in the battle fights is like speed metal. I love hearing the fast guitars, the pumping. Sorry, I'm over here like drinking coffee and orange juice right now. But basically, Zeppeli gets into this fight and kind of intervenes in the fight between JoJo and Tarukas, and puts himself in the middle of the chain. And then Tarukas literally, there's Clark. Tarukas literally chains Baron Zeppeli in half. Like, we literally see his body get split in half, and like we have like half of Baron Zeppeli's upper body, and the rest of it, his legs just kind of sitting lifeless. Blew me away. I mean, when they let people get hurt in this show, they really show you that they got hurt. Like, people losing eyeballs, people like losing half of their body, guys getting folded in half. Like, he got chained in half. WTF. He got chained in half. WTF. JoJo ends up breaking his neck. No, wait a minute. ultimate JoJo. Yeah, JoJo breaks his neck. Half of Zeppeli is still alive and gives him his ult technique. Basically, the half of Zeppeli's body that can move crawls over to JoJo with his broken neck, and he basically passes on the ultimate deep pass overdrive. And JoJo becomes even swoller Joe, and he gets all of Baron Zeppeli's Hamon. Now, this is kind of crazy because it definitely hits me as like the Ben Kenobi sort of like, Star Warsy kind of thing. Like the master dies and, the student is like, no, and then ends up, doing the, going and giving people the business. And let's see, he did Kenobi himself, and JoJo responded accordingly, which is to say that JoJo literally breaks his collar off and powers up. His power-up moments are awesome. I called him Glow Joe at that point because he's all glowing. So we get Swole Joe, but then we get Glow Joe. JoJo brains Tarukas. And when I say brains him, I mean he like kills him in the brain, like just gets his head. And I noticed that Bluford was redeemed. Tarukas didn't get redeemed. He died doing the evil, which again lent into the 50-50 good and evil thing, which I again is kind of one of those themes that continuously pops up throughout. They always give you both ends of the spectrum and maybe even kind of allow you to realize like everything is 50-50. The Deadmaster themed show is a huge launch pad for motivation. I'm definitely sort of bummed that Zeppeli died so early, but he definitely died nobly, like with a hero's death, and I really appreciated that. Left his family to do this. Like we hear that Baron Zeppeli literally left his happy marriage and child to go and pursue this because he felt like it's what he needed to do. And he called JoJo his best friend and new family. And what an achievement to fill your purpose knowingly. I thought about this as Baron is laying and dying, right? Like how great a feeling it must be to end up with a situation where you accomplish what you know your purpose is. Like even if you got, killed by being chained in half, like you knew that you did the thing. And Ton Petty even kind of alluded to that, saying like, you're going to know your purpose. And, I was like, wow, what a terrible, terrible death, but what a good, feeling the death must have been, knowing he achieved what he, was called out to do. To love and win is the best thing. To love and lose is the next best. Wow. I wrote that because you kind of hear that in the death scene. To love and win is the best thing, and to love and lose is the next best. The connection of loving, like love is what makes anything the best thing. And, in this context, we both, loved and won in some regards, but then we also loved and lost in others. And so both of those things are in your face. Dio is in the castle, accepting human sacrifices, like some sort of Faustian agreement. Is Dio going to keep his promise to the woman? No, I wrote. So in this scene, Dio is basically talking to a woman and she's holding her baby and she's like, hey, please don't hurt my baby if I give you my life. And he's like, you don't want me to hurt your baby? You're sure? Okay, I'll do this, but you're going to give me your life? And I said it was definitely like a Faustian agreement. And so basically Dio turns the mom, and then the mom herself, once she becomes a vampire and goes crazy, kills the baby. And Dio's like, I kept my promise. I didn't lay a finger on her. As far as villains go, that one really, really, really drove me crazy. Zombies seem to be made out of the Wind Knight folks. Mr. Adams was zombified, pulling the psych on the group. Okay. Mr. Adams is basically like, taking them to where they need to go. JoJo is getting good at braining people, and he did it with a curb stomp this time. I gotta say, the different ways they find to kill people and dismember people in this show has definitely been exemplary. We end up meeting this guy named Dyer, which I was guessing was like Dire Straits. He's got really slow attacks, but he gets one through, and JoJo headbutts him. I love a good JoJo headbutt. And apparently, Dyer knows Zeppeli. And now we get this guy named Straitso, which then it very much solidified to me, like, Dire Straits, oh my gosh. Once we brained Tarukas and we start kind of heading towards the castle, we find out that these guys were friends of Baron Zeppeli. They were also trained by Tom Petty, who shows up. Like, we've now got JoJo meeting Tom Petty and Dyer and Straitso, which, again, instead of... And he's still chilling there with Ario Speedwagon. And then we get a roundabout ending with Dio just being a creep. But I wrote Tom Petty training arc coming soon, which doesn't happen. And I find that out by getting into episode 8, where I say Poco's dad gives him the business and says the sister is out there searching for him. Now, JoJo's crew looks super hard and costumed now, and I said that they had, like, they set it up to where album cover looking group of dudes. What I mean by that is a lot of time when you see the 4 of the guys standing out, like not Baron, you see Tom Petty, Dyer, Straitso, and JoJo all standing outside of Poco's house in this, like, awesome pose. It looks like 4 guys on an album cover. That's just me. And maybe I'm, like, connecting dots because in my brain I'm like, wow, this is clearly musical. I don't know. Now, Dio is chilling with the Rose, just because, you know, that's what villains do, and kidnaps the sister of Poco. Poco's sister is nice and slaps Dio. I love that she is just, like, not afraid and just goes for it. Dio's throne looks like a bunch of hamburgers. Go back to that scene and see what I'm talking about. Dio's throne looks like like all of the cushions on it look like hamburgers with grill marks. I'll show you what I mean. Dio's throne, Dio is definitely, like, just controlling the castle, again, kind of taking the human sacrifices, and he has this henchman named Doobie, which I'm guessing was like a Doobie Bros reference, a Doobie Brothers reference, but Doobie has this, like, mask on. JoJo arrives in the nick of time and basically throwing like a big old metal beam at Doobie right as Doobie's about to kill Poco's sister, knocking out Doobie's eye. Again, we get people, like, getting brained, getting their eyes, like the very tasteful dismemberment. Anyways, Dio always seems to leave just in time before JoJo shows up. Now, Snake Eyes, Doobie, like a Medusa chimera. So he basically takes his mask off. We see it's a whole bunch of snakes. And, like, he kind of seems like a chimera, a whole bunch of different, you know, collections of beings, or life forms. A very short amount of time, for JoJo to develop. How much time has passed? That was kind of my question on this. Like, from the time we get back from London, I knew 7 years had passed from, like, episode 1 to episode 2. But from the time we're in London to the time we're in episode 8, you know, fighting Doobie, it made me wonder how much time has passed because, like, we have a totally different mindset for JoJo here. JoJo's character development is wild. He made quick work of Doobie, and the fight with Doobie was too short-lived. Like, I really wanted it to be a longer, juicier fight, but this is what it is. Maybe I'm just coming from, like, you know, Dragon Ball Z, where fights take like 30 episodes, but either way, that is where it was. I wanted to see Doobie get more business beat out of him. JoJo and Dio finally meet again, and Dio is acting sentimental over JoJo, which is, I think, really BS. Like, and you kind of see that Dio is, like, always playing the good person in his voice until he's just, like, abandoning the good person thing, and he's like, oh, JoJo, I love you. I have no interest in killing you. And then he's like, I want nothing but for you to die. It's very back and forth, the Dio guy. JoJo and Dio meet again, and a fight to the death. JoJo, death threat, and vengeance promise. We finally get JoJo being like, Dio, I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna take your brain and I'm gonna kill it. And you kind of realize, like, at this point, maybe even JoJo is like, this is too far gone. We can't have this. Dio is just not gonna change whatsoever. But then, right as we get, this fight going, Dyer steps in and he's like, no, I'm gonna fight him and I'm going to avenge my friend Zeppeli. And he does this Thunder Cross split attack, and it looks like he's about to just completely electrocute and melt the brain of Dio, which obviously there's no way that's going to happen, right? Like, Dio has to be the one that loses to JoJo, not the supporting cast. And basically, Dio freezes the entirety of his body. Now, I said Dio's arrogance is on par with the most annoying and most amazing villains. When Dio got shattered and iced in, or Dyer got shattered and iced, turned into ice, and then those, his body just becomes a bunch of roses. So I'm guessing it was a lot of hormone, but we never really got to see the full attack that Dyer was gonna do. How dare you wound me? Wound my face. Dio's little bits are kind of hilarious. Like, he's a villain and he's going in to fight people, and then he gets upset with the people when they hit him. It's like a person hits you and then you hit him back and they cry. Like, that is Dio's character. And it's so tasty when you see him like get hurt and like cry about it. Dio versus JoJo. JoJo cuts Dio's arm off and slices his body in half, like down the middle. Now, he doesn't go like forehead to dick. He basically goes like forehead to belly button. So he's not like completely split in half. But Dio is crying, and it's so tasty. I love seeing him cry. Like, I really love when Dio cries. It makes me so happy. Dio gets JoJo's neck and starts freezing him. And he ends up getting his carotid artery. And it was kind of a brutal scene watching Dio's fingers play with JoJo's neck. Like, outside of his neck, like pulls his carotid artery out of his neck and is just doing this with it. Like, gross. Also, Dio is not a very smart villain, because any good villain would have just killed JoJo then and there. But Dio has to get like his dialogue in, which is never good for him. Now, JoJo goes back to Sunlight Yellow Overdrive Flame Blade. So he basically like takes okay. Splits Dio in half, like I said. He's got a sword that's like just chilling in fire on a pyre or something, like some kind of like pillar, like lantern thing. And he's got his fire. Now, Dio is trying to freeze JoJo, but JoJo's holding on to the sword that has, its end in fire. And it basically is like warming JoJo faster than it's like Dio is freezing JoJo. And Dio putting himself back together, basically like, puts his face back on, and you realize like, okay, Dio can basically like regenerate himself. Humans can, with true conviction, overcome anything. Very inspirational, blazing fist. He punches a hole in Dio. I love this defeat. Then Dio shoots eye lasers, and JoJo shoots tears. JoJo cries for the enemy. Tears for the enemy. I'm not gonna lie. That was such a good scene. You see Dio kind of falling and like shooting his eye lasers, like throwing a big fit, like, but you see JoJo, his response is kind of opposite. Like, he's crying for his enemy, like for the guy that he, in some way, shape, or form, viewed brotherly. It definitely affected me. Like, and when you kind of see that, like, it was a really good feeling to see Dio lose and be so whiny. But it was like, I think even more impactful to see JoJo kind of crying about the whole thing. And you kind of realize like, wow, it's been a quick journey for us, the viewers, but for JoJo, he really dealt with hell from Dio. And then he sees all of these things happen along the way. He watches people die. And like his father gets, I accidentally hit the unrecord button. That was my bad. What I was saying was he still finds it within himself to cry for Dio. And that just goes a long way. I mean, it really, really goes a long way. Coming into episode 9, Dio's tears are so tasty. First thing I wrote, I have loved hearing his arrogance turn into tears. He loses his head and is saved by that apothecary guy, the guy that basically gives Dio the poison to kill George. Dio is like zombified him, and like that guy goes and picks up his head off the floor and basically runs away. Then it loses his head and is saved by the apothecary. December 1988. Okay, hang on. December 1988. Most people in the Widnight village, Widnight lot have gone missing, and they are, when they said earlier that Dio and JoJo were really going to bring the carnage to the town, they weren't lying. We see a scene where REO Speedwagon smashes the mask, and we're like, oh, thank God, it's all over. And I said, I genuinely love the use of comic-looking line work in this anime. like where it really looks like old like Superman comics or something like that, or you just have these really cool line works and like parts where they're shaded, and like the still images of this show really stand out to me. And I'm not like an artistic person, like I'm a musical person, but I have no visual art capabilities whatsoever, so I'd be a terrible judge of them. But JoJo and Arena end up getting married and deciding to head to the Americas. And we see outside of the ship that they're about to get onto that Poco and Ton and the whole gang are out there chilling, saying goodbye. And I wondered how long Arena and JoJo have been together at this point, and are they moving to America or are they just going there for a honeymoon? I wasn't sure. Then we see Father Styx, and I really liked that. Father Styx. JoJo really changed from episode 1, breathing, remaining calm and confident, and you just see some good stuff. Then we see these guys carrying a coffin, and I'm like, is Dio in that coffin? Arena giving words of affirmation about JoJo's gentlemanly nature, a champion of others, fortunate to save a world with you in it. JoJo says that to Arena, and that was such a good line. I am fortunate to have saved a world with you in it. And then you see that Styx, Father Styx, is like drunk, and he kind of like drops this thing on like that goes through like a grate and ends up being a cross that lands on the coffin where we find out Dio is. We see a headless Dio, and Styx got shot in the face like with eyeball lasers, which kind of nuts. We did not get to know Father Styx for very long, but apparently he opened up the gateway for Dio to get out. And immediately, JoJo was like, oh, I think Dio's here. And he basically tells Arena to go run away, right? JoJo ends up finding out where Dio is, like because his Dio senses are tingling. And he breaks his wine, which I felt like kind of a callback to Baron Zeppeli being like, don't spill the wine. I felt like him spilling wine here was indicative of something. Headless Dio, whoa. Styx got shot in the face, whoa. Dio pays respects to JoJo, what? I didn't see that coming. Dio literally says JoJo is the only person that he respects. And I at this point, I don't know if he's serious or not, but I'm led to believe that he ends up being serious. And Dio is like, I'm going to take JoJo's body. He's the only person whose body is worthy of my head, more or less. And he basically laser eyes JoJo right in front of Arena. And then I wrote, I'm on a boat. Because of course it has to be a fight in a boat. And it feels kind of crazy that we've got JoJo who is like kind of okay fighting a headless Dio, like a you know, a bodiless headsman, so to speak. And I said, talk about a bad honeymoon. The shit gets attacked by zombies. And you realize the apothecary turned one guy into a zombie and the rest of the people turned into zombies. JoJo is trying to find a way to save Arena, but because he got shot with the eye lasers, he can't breathe or bring the hormone business. And then we realized the apothecary's name is Wang Chen, which I was thinking was like Wang Chung, like everybody have fun tonight, everybody Wang Chung tonight, I'm guessing. Dio respects JoJo in a big way, apparently, and is like, no, you're going to leave his body intact for me. Some of the power-up scenes just look so good. Like where you see the glowing nature behind JoJo, they really do have just this really cool, like, I don't even know what it is, like hi-fi, like high fidelity, like really bright coloring. I wish I knew better, like how to talk about the art, but this is as good as you're going to get from me. Now, Dio is, let's see, where would Arena leave to? The ship is going to blow up. Like, they get it situated to where Wang Chen gets blown away, and he's, like, hanging on to this cog, and Dio basically reveals how him hanging onto that cog is going to make the ship blow up, and JoJo is, like, telling Arena to leave, and I'm like, where is she going to go? The ship is going to blow up. Where's anybody going to go? Like, how is she going to save herself if it explodes? But, Arena is a ride or die, and JoJo sends his wife to save a baby. I thought that was really cool. Arena Joestar will remain with her husband. I did get a little bit teary there. She's like, look, I'm not going to go anywhere. I married you. I love you. We're going to figure this out. And even if we don't, I'm going to die with you because I love you. That was a really good moment, dude. That was a really good moment. JoJo is gonna get wrecked in the explosion, and Dio and JoJo, body gonna happen? Not sure. Now, basically, Dio's head starts flying at JoJo, and JoJo catches Dio. Does JoJo die a hero's death? And squeezing Dio's head. I wrote that, and it really hit me when I realized that, like, JoJo gets kind of really quickly injured, right? Like, just random eyeball shots, and like kind of is bleeding out, it seems. And in a last scene, as Dio charges JoJo to like take his body, he's got his like neck veins below him. He ends up, JoJo catches Dio's head and dies holding Dio's head still until the boat explodes. Like, literally dying a hero's death. And in my brain, I'm like, how did he die? How did JoJo die? I can't believe it. I've only known this kid for 9 episodes and you kill him? What are you talking about? And it ends up with Irina closing it out with a narration saying most humanity won't know what he did. In Irina and the baby escape, Irina is either pregnant or has already had the baby. And it seems that both guys die. Like, we lose both Dio and JoJo. Like, both sides of the coin are gone. The mask is destroyed. It kind of leaves us with this inclination that, like, the bloodline is passed on. And I don't know if, like, Irina saved the baby, and the saved baby is the one that, they're talking about, or if, like, Irina's pregnant and there's, like a bloodline thing that's going to happen, and, like, she's going to push out her own little Joestar. I'm not sure. But I guess that, Irina inherited everything, and maybe she starts over in the Americas. I have no clue how it's all going to work. As far as my review of all of the recap, here's kind of my thoughts. It started out really fast. I mean, the whole thing was incredibly fast-paced. Like, you kind of skip a lot of the training montages. You're wondering how this got learned. You're wondering if it got learned along the way. I loved all of the rock and roll references. I think what I loved more than anything was we had this call to breathing. We had this call to remaining calm and stoic and doing the right thing for the sake of it being the right thing. It wasn't just a show that was focused on really cool fight scenes, and those were there, but it was a show that I felt really focused on morality, and really focused on, like, goodness and, like, doing the right thing for the sake of it being the right thing, even if it's really hard. I really appreciated that we were kind of called to conscientiousness within the first 9 episodes. And honestly, there was a big silliness to it, like, and I kind of liked the silliness. It seemed like an anime without having to lean too deeply into anime tropes. Like, I didn't feel like a lot of what I watched was overdone in other anime, and that to me was a good and exciting thing. I didn't feel like it was ripping off a whole bunch of other stuff. I felt like it was just a whole lot of fun. Like, it was cool to see things come up, even if I was left wondering how they ended up learning those things. It was cool to see the character development, especially in a really fast context. But it makes me wonder what the next season is going to be, like what the next arc is going to be, which, in case you were wondering, I'm absolutely going to be doing it. But I think my favorite character might be, like, either Baron Zeppeli or Robert E.O. Speedwagon. I mean, and honestly, they really deliver on making the villains cry. Like, when the villains lose, I got so excited. Hearing Dio be a little whiny baby after we've seen him kick and murder, like, kick a dog, then, kill a dog, murder people, like, SA and DV Arena. Like, when you see that he really does get the business, the karma moments that are delivered to the villains are just so tasty. And I'm really hoping that it kind of amps up. I had a lot of people telling me to skip part 1, but I just can't watch anime that way. I got to start at the beginning and go forward. So that's kind of what my plan is from here. I'm going to watch the next part and do another video like this. Maybe take notes, maybe not be so heavy on my notes. I'm not sure. Let me know if you liked the format. I know it's a little bit different than what I've done previously, but this is where we're at, and this is what we did. So, yeah. I feel like that pretty well sums it up. And in case you're wondering, like I said, I will absolutely be doing part 2. And on this channel, gonna, also be doing a couple of other reactions to a couple of other animes. I'm gonna start off, the first two animes I plan on reviewing on this channel are gonna be JoJo's Bizarre Adventure and Attack on Titan. I'm also gonna be doing movies, and I'm gonna be starting those out with Clockwork Orange and the movie Spinal Tap. Both movies I've not seen, and both movies people tell me I need to see. So if you like the content, feel free to like and subscribe. And remember, before I go, that you are awesome, that you are valuable, that you are important, that you matter, that you are deserving of love, and that I am abundantly grateful for even a moment of your time. If you like what you see, feel free to hit the like and the subscribe button. Remember, I stream every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Arizona time on Twitch and Kick. And yeah, guys, before I go, be introspective and consider the birds. Thank you for being here. Let me know what else I should be doing. Love yous. Goodbye.